Alright, so all those finally finished, and that was only at half res, so prepare yourself for the full res renders. And at any rate, let's go over to do some compositing. Let's put those images together. So go to the IMG area, so we store our compositing networks, and honestly we only need one. So drop the only node down that you can, which is image network, and we go inside of it and we can see we're in compositing land now. Go to composite view so we can see the results of that, and let's get started with a file. File in the compositing area obviously reads in images. I'm going to go to auto update so we can actually have it work and read and see our cool default butterfly effect. Go over to our control panel too, and now we need to use this render verse thing again. So copy the parameter there, paste absolute references. You know, even if you have the cursor in here and you're trying to just paste it in a certain spot, it replaces the entire thing anyway. I don't know why. I think this node is just older or something. So just copy that text. Now let's go find in the job area / render. Let's go find our infinite ocean to start with. And there it is. And if we scrub, we can see it. This is what we rendered last night. You can see the boat being masked out there, which is pretty cool. And if you look carefully, you can see some other masking going on here and there. It won't really matter. It's going to get covered by our splash images. But in any case, get rid of the 1 here, and let's paste that render version thing. You can see it still works. And of course, if I change render version, it'll not find it. Let's also delete this stuff. It renames a node for you the first time. Get rid of that. This is the name of our element here. So delete that and replace that with $OS, and delete this, same thing, so that it matches, like so, the name of our element. And now we can just copy and paste these things and just rename them to get whatever we need. Now when I copy and pasted it, it split my compositing view. And that's because I have 2 blue things on. If I shift click on it, I can go back to viewing both at the same time. That can be pretty useful. For now, we really only need to see one thing. So here it is. Here's our splash. So it looks good. We have the white in the front. And we even have it, we get some of that white here where the water is hitting the ground, which is really nice. A lot of that is vorticity, the splashing attribute that we were rendering. We wouldn't get to see that otherwise. I mean, we certainly wouldn't see this. And yeah, that feeling of the water connecting with the ground is really nice. Like so. Cool. So we'll probably just stick to like frame 96 for a lot of these tests. Cool. Now, if we try to just put it on top of it, it will do a good enough job, probably. Because the edges of this do more or less match the ocean. I can say this, and there you go. Turning it on and off, I get this and this. So we see some differences. Some of the differences are, you know, the sun is being blocked here, so it's much darker. It also seems like it raises it up a little bit, because it does. As I showed you before, when we had the foam raying up to it, it is a little bit higher. Can't really be helped. I mean, you can, I'm sure, write a whole bunch of Vex stuff to target the largely flat areas and smush them back down, but it won't really matter. I mean, it barely matters even now, as you can see if I scrub it. You can't really even tell where it begins and ends anyway. At the very least, though, we can use that flattened, aka the blend layer that we created. So, because right now the alpha is this hard edge, let's use the softer edge to further integrate it. So I'm going to say, use a channel copy. We want to copy one channel to our alpha. And that is, of course, so there's the target alpha, and our source is the blend layer that we came up with. And to reiterate, if we look at the blend, it's this soft thing along the sides, as opposed to this hard thing for the alpha. So they'll just obviously help us. So here we go. Oop, went back to the wrong view. Here we go on the channel copy. If we now look at the alpha, it is now that blend. Now if we do this, we can see it's doing something, but we now have this light area. And that's because the alpha changed here, but the RGB didn't get changed to match it. What we need to do is a pre-multiply. That'll basically just take the image and multiply itself by the alpha. So this is what it should look like. And now we have this. So now we have a softer blend than we had before. Is there a huge difference? There's a little bit. You can see with it on and off, there's a little bit of a difference. You can see like the line right here, for example, is now gone. So great. So it looks really good. What else can we do? We can bring in all the rest of our elements. Let's put the boat here. Do we got our boat? Or not ocean boat, I guess it's just boat. You can see it has the matte on it. It has the, the ocean is being dropped out of it. I'm gonna make a separate layer. So this one's kind of reserved for this initial operation here, and then I'll have everybody else will go into this other one here. So now you can see I'm adding the boat in, and we can just drop it on because it already had this eaten out of it. If we had had it just be the entire boat render and you dropped it on, I mean, it would just look like it's hovering above the water here. So that's cool. So we're getting further already. Any one of these we can tweak. We can say, like, here's a color correct. And say, I want it to be brighter, or I want to, make something much darker, or maybe, obviously not that dark, but you can tweak it. We could even change the color. In theory, if you did like a HSV, you could change the color of the boat entirely. This will work more or less. It won't change the color of the boat being seen through the refraction actually on this, or you can see it's yellow on that layer. But if you discerning people, unless you were looking really close, you probably couldn't tell. Anyway, we're not changing the color of the boat. So there's the boat. What else we got? We've got to do the foam. So the foam can just be thrown on top of there too. If you ever want to see like a before and after, you can disable the original here, or the original file reading part. We've also got the spray. You can always look at any individual one as well. There you go. Now right off the bat, I can see the spray looks pretty different. Or like the color doesn't really match. So like I said before, let's put a color correct. Color correct for the spray. And if we do a mult will multiply the color by itself, thus making it brighter. It'll make the brighter parts even brighter. So bring it up until it looks good. And that's the nice thing about doing this as separate layers. If I had just rendered it all and it looked like this, how would I target those areas? Now I can. Now I can make this be, red if I wanted to. I could make it be a blood mist. That'd be fun. But we're not making a blood mist. So going back to, let's say 1.5 or so, I want it to be bright. I want these little droplets to be really catching that light and generally kind of matching the look of the rest of this. I'm trying to integrate that all together. Cool. And there's the mist still. The mist is a pretty subtle effect, as we know. We can see the liquid cut out of it already as we need. And there you go. Again, if you can't really tell if it's there or not, you can disable it, and you can be like, oh yeah, it is there. Look at that. Man, it's definitely there. You can even go to the last frame here. Where, everything I guess is at its biggest at the end. So you can definitely see it there at the end. You could color correct it. You could do whatever you want. We could even color correct the ocean itself and say like, well, the midtones, like, this color, this kind of like medium grayish blue look here, we could, make it brighter with the gamma. If we wanted to just, instead of re-rendering it with a brighter light, we could bring it up like that. Maybe I even will. I'll give it a little bit of a boost like that. It just pops a little bit more now. So mold, like I said, kind of makes the brighter parts brighter. Gamma kind of makes the darker parts be a little bit brighter. I mean, that's not entirely accurate, but that's ends up being the final result, or the perceived result, I think. So yeah, maybe you might want to keep it darker to contrast with this better. I don't know. I kind of think it looks better this way. And that's it. Feel free to tweak this endlessly. Some changes you might have to re-render. If it's too dense with the spray or something, I mean, you only can do so much here. So you could go re-render that. That's not unusual to go back and re-render it. But again, all you have to do is re-render the one element, spray or foam or whatever. In the meantime, I'm going to type ROP for ROP file output here. Go to the controls, say compvers, grab him, copy parameter. Same problem here, so just paste it first, then kind of copy it. Now I'm going to say job/comp/version, the comp version /final frame dot frame dot exr. And that's really it. We can click render here. And going back to our dependency mode here, we can actually also put it here. So I'm going to say fetch. You can actually put any cop thing. You can say cop, or rather. Actually, I'm not even going to do that. Let's just do this. So point to that image one, ROP comp one. So now, if you really wanted to be crazy, at some point you could just, disable all of these and run the whole thing. You could change some parameter way back up on the fluid sim and just say, you know what, I'm going to come back in a day. It's going to run everything in order. It's going to render everything in order, and it's going to composite everything, and you'll have your final image waiting for you. Don't want to do that, obviously, right now. So I'm going to go ahead and disable everything just to make sure. Run this, and it should be pretty fast. These image, as you see, if I can scrub that fast, you can imagine it can save to disk that fast. Cool. So let's see what that looks like when it's done.